There is a kingdom, buried in time, whose power was so great that it once ruled the very land of the pharaohs. A kingdom of war and wealth, ambition and defiance, one that shook the very foundation of ancient Egypt. Yet, history has almost erased its name. Why? This is the story of the Kingdom of Kush, Egypt's mighty southern neighbor, a civilization of golden riches, towering pyramids, fearless warriors, and iron-forged destiny. A kingdom that defied the greatest empires of its time, even daring to wear the crowns of the pharaohs themselves. But how did Kush rise from the sands of Nubia to challenge the might of Egypt? And why, despite its incredible legacy, is it barely remembered today? The answer lies in an epic struggle that would change the course of history. Before the Great Pyramids of Giza, before the name Pharaoh carried its legendary weight, there was Nubia, a land teeming with gold, ivory, and powerful tribes. This was a land where warriors trained from birth, where trade routes connected Africa's heart to the ancient world. And from these lands, an empire was born. To Egypt, this land was both a prize and a threat. They called it Taseti, the land of the bow, because no archer was deadlier than a Nubian warrior. But Kush was more than just warriors. It was a civilization of kings. And one day, those kings would turn the tides of history. By 2500 BCE, the first great Kushite city, Kerma, rose from the desert. It was a city of towering temples, massive burial mounds, and a civilization unlike anything Egypt had ever seen. The pharaohs saw Kush not just as a neighbor, but as a rival. For centuries, war raged. Pharaohs sent their armies south to seize Kush's endless gold mines. But Kush fought back with a fury that Egypt did not expect. The Kushite warriors were relentless, their archers unmatched, their kings unbroken. But the tide turned. Around 1500 BCE, Pharaoh Thutmose I launched an invasion so brutal that the land of Kush was crushed under the weight of Egyptian rule. Egypt had won, or so they thought. For centuries, Kush lay in Egypt's shadow. But empires are not eternal. Egypt began to fracture. Chaos spread. And when the pharaohs were at their weakest, Kush was ready to strike. From the city of Napatan, a new generation of Kushite kings emerged, not to reclaim their land, but to take Egypt itself. In an astonishing twist of fate, Pharaoh Pi of Kush marched north and seized Egypt's throne. He was not an invader. He saw himself as the savior of Egypt, a ruler destined to restore its glory. The unthinkable had happened. The conquerors had become the conquered. The Kushites ruled Egypt as the 25th dynasty, and under them, the land flourished. The mighty Kushite pharaohs, from Pi to Taharqa, revived Egypt's temples, rebuilt its cities, and expanded their empire beyond imagination. But in the distance, another empire watched, a new predator, one that would stop at nothing to crush Kush's rule forever. The Assyrians were unlike anything the world had seen before. Their armies were brutal, their weapons forged from iron, their conquests merciless. In 671 BCE, they descended upon Egypt with fire and fury. The Kushite pharaoh Taharqa fought with all his might. But against the unstoppable war machine of Assyria, even the greatest warriors fell. Egypt was lost. The Kushite pharaohs were forced to retreat south, their empire shattered. But the story of Kush was far from over. Defeated but unbroken, the Kushites forged a new destiny. They moved their capital to Meroë, where they built an empire anew, an empire of iron and trade, pyramids and queens. The Kandakes, the warrior queens of Kush, rose to power. These were rulers who defied Rome itself. When the Roman Emperor Augustus sent his armies into Nubia, Queen Amanirenas met them not with diplomacy, but with war. She fought back, stormed Roman forts, and forced a peace on her own terms. For centuries, Meroë stood as a beacon of Kushite strength. But time is relentless. Trade routes shifted, enemies grew stronger, and by the 4th century, the once mighty empire of Kush faded into the shadows of history. But why? Why is Kush a mere shadow in the annals of history while Egypt stands immortal? Perhaps because history is sculpted by those who seek to erase their rivals. Perhaps because the desert swallowed its glory, hiding its might beneath shifting sands. Or perhaps, just perhaps, Kush was never truly lost. It lingers in the silent grandeur of its pyramids, in the whispers of its warrior kings, in the bloodlines of those who still walk its lands. Kush was not just Egypt's neighbor. It was its equal, its rival, and for a time, its conqueror. This was a kingdom of iron and gold, of warrior queens and fearless kings, of an empire that stood against the greatest forces of the ancient world, and won. They tried to bury its story. But empires may crumble, monuments may fall, and names may fade. Yet legends? Legends never die.